And welcome back to Astroline. This is Steve Sparks, and I'm with Jeff Blum. And Blummer, we got a special guest today, and it's one of our favorites because we don't have to talk as much. Because Billy Wagner, he'll do a lot of talking. He did a lot of talking on the baseball field too. So Blummer, your buddy Billy Wagner's with us. Billy, thanks for coming in, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Always good talking with Billy.
Billy the kid turns 50 in July. Is that sinking in yet?
What?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, it does in a lot of ways.
So you're still coaching high school baseball. You're about to turn 50, and I would imagine you're throwing about an hour's worth of BP every day. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I have splurged and got a few machines since getting close to that 50. So I have I have more coaches, and I start to kind of delegate a little bit more. But I still do my fair share of throwing, and that's about the only thing that doesn't hurt. It's throwing. Yeah. I feel I can throw forever. It's everything else hurts.
Tell me what your kids are doing now. You have 4 kids. Have you had one get through high school yet?
Yeah, I've got 2 in college. One's at Liberty. He'll be a junior at Liberty, second baseman. Then I have a freshman at Austin P down in Tennessee, who's a freshman outfielder. I have a daughter who's a junior in high school, basketball player. And my 14-year-old is an 8th grader at Miller. And so he'll be on the JV baseball team. So I'll start to kind of weed through this. So I'm almost through this whole thing. I'm almost through this where I don't have to stress anymore. And I can just kind of I can actually go, okay, I can coach everybody.
You sound like Blummer.
Shoot, yeah, I'm counting the days too, but I've hung around Sparky enough to know that it doesn't end. It's never ending. It's just a lifelong journey of fatherhood and pain and stress and cash.
Oh, without a doubt. Absolutely.
Hey, but Billy, we'll talk a little bit about your professional career in a little bit, but I'm always curious, you coaching some of these high school kids and being around the club aspect of baseball these days, which has changed completely for all 3 of us. It's a completely different animal, but you were a guy that could throw 100 miles an hour. How many of your players or even players on other teams who know who you are approach you and say, Billy, how do I throw 100 miles an hour?
Less than you'd think.
Really?
Yeah. And most kids have gurus. Most kids have gurus nowadays.
that great name.
They will. And I think a lot of that's because when you have a guru, you pay him. And what's that guy going to say? So he's not going to tell you anything you don't want to hear. Coach Wagner will. And so they don't, and you know me, I'm pretty straight. And, I try to be, I'm not going to crush a kid's dreams or anything, but but the kids, I'm going to say, hey, things have got, these are things that, I did. But I mean, as you know, being in a locker room, you're with a bunch of freaks. And I mean, you don't know why they're able to do the things they're doing. I don't know why I'm 5'10" and can throw as hard as I could, but I mean, this is what I did. And so, when you talk to Nolan or when you talk to some of these older players, they did things that none of us ever did. I mean, nobody did heavy ball. Nobody did bands and all this. I mean, there's a 45-minute routine to these kids nowadays. And so they don't come up as much. They, I think they're a little bit more impressed when I go out and throw BP and I'm throwing from the mound. And they're like, oh, God, wait a minute. Oh, yeah. Way better movement.
You still got that short arm action that just pumps it in there, huh?
Oh yeah, well, yeah. And so, they'll laugh because I'll come in and I'll put my cleats on. I'll go, all right, guys, let's go. You got me today. And so, and they're like, what? And it's not as hard as it used to be. But for about the first 4 or 5 years, I would tone it up and go, here we go. And I would gas it, and guys would just be, And so, the machine was a little bit more friendly for them and stuff. And so, but I mean. Playing long toss and watching these guys, they still get an idea of what I'm trying to teach and stuff. So, but it is, I mean, it has changed a lot for us, but, in a lot of good ways.
With everything you've accomplished in the game, what motivated you to get back into coaching? I know your kids are probably part of it, but you're really in it and really encouraging these kids. What was it about the game and what is it about coaching that you love so much?
Well, I was blessed to have 2 coaches. I had a lot of coaches, but my high school coach, Luke Perry, was just a huge influence on me. And understanding that, it's about the kid, not the wins and losses. My college coach, Abe Naff, was a huge influence on just being a motivator and teaching kids how to play, not with numbers, but to win the game. And so and going through pro baseball, it was, you become very selfish. And you forget how hard this game is a lot of times. And so once I got out, I said, you know what, I'm going to go back and I'm going to relax and I'm going to teach these. I just want these kids to have fun, but I want them to play with a passion and understand the game and, not be so worried about wins and losses. The process of winning and losing will come with how you practice, how you go about your job and your accountability. And so just really preaching that and not really browbeating a kid over, not getting a hit, or because I tell them, you're going to take bad swings, you're going to make bad pitches, you're going to make good pitches. All these things are going to happen, but, compete, learn how to compete and don't look back at numbers. Don't sit here and please don't come in and ask me what your pitch count is or what your spin rate or what my launch angle was on that. Just hey, if you got a hit, great. If you're on base, great. If you got that guy out and there's a line drive, great. I said, because at the end of the day, that's what matters and you're trying to win. And so, but the game in that aspect has changed too, because the colleges have put a lot of emphasis on size and maturity and IQ that some of these kids don't get because they're little late bloomers. And so, I try to take a little bit of that pressure off and just say, hey, oh, that'll take care of itself by just going out and competing. And, and I enjoy the kids. I enjoy the relationships with the kids because there's so much more to being a high school coach than going out there and saying, hey, hold the ball this way, grip it that way. I mean, they have so much going on in their life with family, colleges, girlfriends, you name it. And having just a little bit of influence to kind of smooth out or have somebody just they can sound on and not be judgmental on them. They feel better about that. And so I like that because my high school coach and college coach was really a lot like that for me. And so we've been very blessed to have a lot of great kids come in and, but it's been good to have that relationship.
Billy, why do you think baseball is the ultimate late bloomer sport?
It's not a size requirement. I mean, it's about production and competing. And I think when you go out there, there's been enough guys that show that you don't have to have a certain size. You have to have a certain grit about you to be able to compete. And competing, once again, isn't a size requirement. It's a heart requirement. And, if you've got the requirement, if you can go out there and manage your emotions and compete and fight for that, you can play against these guys. I mean, when you watch ESPN, all you see is these guys hitting home runs. You only see them hitting home runs, but then you look in the box scores and they were 1 for 4 with 3 punch outs, but they hit a home run. They don't see that. And so kids are like, oh, these guys are so great. I got to be this. And, and it's really difficult to show these kids that, and I tell these kids, I will never be the guy that goes, you'll never play pro baseball. Cause I said, I was very fortunate. My coaches were very positive with me, but there were people around sitting there going, you can't do this. You're not going to do that. You're too little. I mean, there was a scout for the Astros. And I mean, I guess Strami might know him. His name was Paul Weaver. I was in Salt Lake City and he was behind me and he reached over my shoulder and goes, hey, I just want to let you know that I didn't want to draft you. You're too small. You're not going to be durable. And I said, well, I appreciate that. Thanks. And that was a positive for me because that was just motivation. But, most kids today, they can't handle that. And so, I got, those are things, these kids today need motivation. They need the encouragement, but they need grit. And, and I like being that guy.
What was high school coaching like this year with the pandemic? What did you have to change? It had to be brutal.
Yes. Spray bottles and masks and foggers. And I mean,
10 jobs, right?
Well, everything. I mean, you're cleaning before they get there. You're making sure masks are on. You're cleaning after they leave. It's just hand sanitizers. We're a small private school, but it's really, I've taken on that extra, like, hey, I'm the grounds crew, and now we have a turf field, which helps a ton. But I'm the cleanup crew. I'm the concession guy. So all these things I try to, the music and the lights and so we're doing all that. But it's just, it adds a little bit more time. But I mean, it's what it takes to be able to have what you want to be able to do. And I'm no guru in baseball, but I love being around baseball. And so I'll do whatever I need to do to be able to have these kids on the field playing and enjoying themselves.
Oh, you're good, Sparky. I thought you were going to have more. Hey, Billy, when you were playing in high school and going through the collegiate levels, when did you actually realize that you had that kind of velocity in your left arm?
I did not. I was not very good. I wasn't very good at knowing who I was. Of course you have people say, hey, you throw hard and you do this. I had strikeouts, but you always had, I'm left-handed. I was effectively wild. I really didn't know what I was doing. And so it kind of, I don't know if I ever thought I was good enough. I think that was one of the things that kind of drove me is, motivation. I know what numbers say and I know what things, but there's a point where numbers become a target. And so and a bullseye on you. And so, I never thought about how hard I threw. Everybody else would like to tell me, you of all people know that throwing hard, it still travels a long way. You took me deep. David Eckstein took me deep. It was really, for me, I was never comfortable in my own skin with that because it only takes one reporter to go, hey, you're a thrower. And all of a sudden you go, oh, how about crush your dreams real quick? Those were the things that really hard. And I had those guys because I was a pitcher in 2010. I was a thrower in 95, 96. And, until I realized that, you can't throw Vinny Castillo straight fastballs the whole time. It just doesn't work.
No, you can't. No, he can hit the cheese. A lot of guys get to the big leagues and the ability to be able to hit the cheese. But you actually, you spent your career as a closer, but you also talked a little bit about being a starter and then moving to the closer. What made that decision for you? Was it the velocity or was it just the ability to get the swing and miss? Because your swing and miss numbers that we'll talk about in a little bit are off the charts in comparison to guys who are in the Hall of Fame. When I was starting, I didn't like starting because I had one day. I liked the day I started, and that was it. But I didn't have this huge mixture of pitches. It was fastball. And Jerry Goff was and Strami were my manager, and Jerry Goff was my catcher. And they would tell me, okay, you got to throw 10% changeups in your starts. And me and Jerry would throw 10 changeups in the first inning. All right, here we go. Get them out of the way.
Yeah, but it was, let's do what I do and best. And, and at that time, there wasn't a lot of guys throwing hard. There was hard guys, but then there wasn't guys throwing 100 miles an hour. There wasn't lefties that were, 5'10" throwing hard uphill. Those were different things that people hadn't seen. And I learned more about my control and ability as a starter through the minor leagues, but getting the opportunity to close was probably the best thing. And Larry Durker was a huge influence on that because I went to Puerto Rico to work on starting in 96, and he ends up taking over in that 97. And he comes down and he's got a big cigar and he's sitting there with Matt Galani, and he goes, he's asking me what I want to do. Would you want to close or would you want to start? And I'm like, I want to close. He goes, all right, that sounds good. You and Hudak will be co-closers. It's pretty that was how it was. And so I, and it kind of worked out. Hootie was pitching well. I think he got hurt and then it just kind of fell on me a little bit. But it was just, I enjoyed having to be ready every day. It would, as I got older, it got more stressful, and it was just that constant preparation. I enjoyed that. But I liked closing way better than starting.
We talked a little bit about the Hall of Fame stuff. We're starting to see an uptick, and it's very encouraging. And I know you're encouraged, Billy, about some of the votes that are coming in. I think about a third of the votes are in now, and another 20% rise in your votes to obtain Hall of Fame membership. So with that being said, we keep trending in this direction. And usually when guys do, it's very favorable. What would it mean to you?
Well, I think it's hard to put into words because it's just something I think every player wants. There's no doubt when you watch the Hall of Fame inductions and you see the guys up there, everybody's practiced that induction speech. Oh, yeah. I've practiced that thing a million times. Just what's that sound like? What would that feel like? Because you know what? Whatever I practice ain't going to come out when I get on there. I'm going to be a ball of tears and emotion. So to be able to sit there and look around and go, there's Barry Larkin, there's there's Nolan Ryan, there's Sandy Koufax. These guys that have been there, I think that is, you know, I don't know, speechless.
It's hard to fathom, isn't it?
Well, you know, when you've come from, I guess, welfare to middle class to
Humble beginnings. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, those aren't things you think about. And then when I grew up, I mean, every guy that was on TV, they were millionaires. They had to have silver spoons. It was just until you realize and mature that, you know, getting that break and doing something with that moment, you know, that was, I think, you know, getting 300 saves was like, if you get 300 saves, hey, there's a real shot here, you know, 400, you should have no problem. And then, you know, then you get that. And then the real hard part comes, because now, you know, that the numbers aren't the issue for why things are what they are. I mean, so, you know, everything's politically correct. And unfortunately, I'm not a politically correct person.
Yeah.
I mean,
a lot of that is timing too, right?
Well, yeah, Mo and Trevor screwed it up for everybody.
Right,
They just
exactly.
would not retire and quit or lose. They killed it for everybody.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you know, it's been a blast.
You idolized Nolan Ryan, and I would imagine the first time you got a chance to meet him, one of the things that probably endeared you to Nolan was how humble he was because of your personality. Is that right?
Well, he made his debut in pro ball in my hometown.
Really?
I mean, Marion, Virginia. Yeah, my dad saw him. It was crazy. And it was funny because the very first time I met Nolan, he's in there with Dennis Laborio in the locker room, and Dennis calls me in, and I'm just a wreck. And so I'm talking to him, and I go, I go, yeah, Nolan, you made your debut in my hometown, Marion, Virginia. He goes, yeah, I didn't like that place. Oh, yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, thanks. So, yeah, and that was, but I mean, over the years, I got to spend more time. And I remember, I was 96 or 97. I went through like a 6-week, I stunk. I don't know what it was. Couldn't get anybody out, and good, bad, it didn't matter. And so Dirk and all those guys, they go, hey, oh my God, we'll get him to Nolan. Nolan will fix him. He fixed Randy Johnson. So sure enough, I get a phone call from Nolan, and getting a phone call from Nolan is like, you know, hey, this is Nolan Ryan. Like, and then when you walk up to him, hey, I'm Nolan Ryan. Like that, he's sitting there like, okay. And so, and I'm like, I'm William Edward Wagner. That's who I feel like I need to tell you who I am and what's my date. But I go out, and he goes, I'd like you to come out to Alvin, Texas, and I'm going to look at you and watch you throw and whatever. So we're still during the season. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning. I come out, and I got Donnie Wall. Donnie Wall's going to catch me. I think he's with me, and we weren't sure if there's going to be a catcher. So he comes in. Sure enough, I'm playing catch. I'm playing catch with Nolan. So I'm throwing with Nolan. And I'm sitting here the whole time. Oh my God, that's Nolan Ryan. And
I'm short hopping.
Oh my God, no, heck no. I mean, that was traumatic enough. And so he goes, all right, get up on the mound, see what you got. And I mean, it never took me long to get loose anyway, but I was throwing rockets. That's the first time I was like, oh my God, I've got good stuff at 10 o'clock. And so he looks at me, and I mean, literally I throw him 10 pitches, and he goes, oh, hell, kid, you're good. And that was all he said. So I go back to that
was it.
Astrodome. What's that?
That was it.
That was it. And he goes,
thanks for coming.
So he calls Dirk and him and goes, oh, he's good. And so, of course, they put me in that night. I think I give up a run. You know, I punch out 3, I give up a run, but they're like, oh, he's back. And stuff. And it was sort of like when it was funny because it's sort of like when Randy Johnson came in, and I came back, and they're like, oh, you need to talk to Randy about his slider. I go up and I go, hey, Randy, hey, you know, hey, show me how you drip. Can you help me work on this? And he goes, I hold it like this. All right. Okay. Good talk. Yeah. Got it. And I think 99, I end up having this really good year. Breaking balls real good. All of a sudden, Randy Johnson's like, yeah, I worked with him. And I'm like,
showed him my slider.
I'm like, are you kidding me?
He owes everything to me.
Randy Johnson's over here trying to go, yeah, we worked on that. And I'm like, dude, your back was hurt. You're laying in the dang. I mean, he was laying down. He couldn't throw all the time. His back was hurt. Go out, pitch 8 innings, punch out 20. Ugh, I can't finish that last one. My back's hurt. Get him Wags. That's what I told him. I was like, what? You know, paid all this money. But it was funny. But I mean, but really, Nolan was just, I mean, even I think 2 years ago when I came in and I threw out the first pitch and I walk in and, you know, it's something to see Baggy and Biz. I mean, there's still those iconic figures, but I walk in and there's Nolan. And I've met Nolan 100 times. Hey, Nolan Ryan. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yeah, I mean, he's just such an awesome person, though. He never asked me silly stuff. It's like, hey, you gang, how's them cows doing? You know, it's always about farmer. Well, so it's great. So he puts you at ease a little bit more now.
Yeah, nothing like a couple of ball players talking about beef before baseball. But hey, I get traded over in 2002, and I become a part of the Astros, and I'm playing third base. And I'm getting to realize what Houston summers are like, you know, 105 humidity, you know, sweating bullets. And I want to know something. When you came into games, I'd be standing at third base, and all of a sudden I would feel this whoosh on the right-hand side of me when we were playing at Minute Maid Park. And it was every ounce of humidity outside the stadium that just came rushing in and took me out as you came into games. Did you have any control over that, or is that something you wanted?
No. Nobody
Good
wants
Lord,
that.
that's good to know, because for the entire time we played together, I blamed you for that.
Well, good. You know what? Because I was sitting there and I was like, who? What? And I remember talking to Drayton about that. And Drayton goes, well, I promised the city of Houston we were going to have outdoor baseball. I'm like, holy. I said, all righty. I went from 5'10" each game. I'm back to 5'8".
I was going to say, you pitched 1 inning and you lost the most weight of anybody on the team.
Well, I remember just being drenched and just feeling like I'd done. And, you know, Baggy and them were looking at me like, I've just played nine innings, 162 games, 9 innings, and I'm great. And I'm like, good. I'm just pouring sweat. I don't know why they did that, but that's what Drayton always told me. Well, I promised them outdoor baseball.
Well, that's good. We can be friends again. I just thought it cracked me up. I'm like, why is Billy asking for the roof to be open, man? Does the ball not travel as well, or what's going on?
Oh, yeah. The balls have been hit off me. They traveled well. They traveled well.
Shut up, dude.
Piazza hit that
few
ball.
of them did, not
Piazza hit. Well, I tell you, I can't imagine if
who did you hate facing?
A home run off me, huh?
Who did you hate facing? Was Piazza one of the worst?
No. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Well, I know this sounds crazy, but
I know this. I know the answer to this.
Well, I'll be honest with you. It's like Osmus, like you, like Eckstein, like guys that, yeah, if you made a mistake, they could do some damage. But I mean, they 8, 9 fell off, battled it. All of a sudden, base hit, you're out there going, holy cow! Now that guy comes back around, and you've done 25 pitches, and you're starting to feel it in 105 degree, 200 degree humidity. You're like, oh my God. But those were the guys. Miguel Oliva wore me out. Oh my God. Yeah. He would wear me. These guys would wear me out. But
so funny.
I know some of the bigger guys like Mac and Barry and
Sosa a lot.
Those guys, those two got me, but 1 for 5. So I was never like, here we go. I mean, it was, I enjoyed that because it was really a win-win for me. I mean, I remember coming in one time and Reggie Jackson asked me, he come in the dugout and he saw me, he goes, hey, Wags. And I go, hey, Reggie Jackson, oh my God. And he goes, he did this one time. I said, one time? He goes, I'd like to face you one time. And he goes, now you'd probably strike me out 9 out of 10 times because one time. I'm like, let's do it. Let's go. But I mean, it was pretty cool. I mean, I like that guy. I like, hey, power on power. And I mean, when McGuire took me so deep, he almost took me out of Busch Stadium. I mean, it literally hit like the first or second row from going out. I come in and we just lost the game, and Biggio's going, oh my God, that's awesome. You're like, really? That's. I mean, and Bagwell's going, hey, let me forearm bash you. I'm like, what? What?
Those guys are special.
Oh, they are. And you're sitting there going, and so it was great when Kerry Woods like dominated them. I was like, Kerry was awesome. I'm getting a signed ball and I'm in the clubhouse. He was so awesome. That was so cool. And they're like, so pissed. You've got the death stare from Bagwell, and you've got Biggio walking around like he's going to kill somebody. It was awesome. So I love being able to sit there and just give it right back to him.
Hey, I got one more question before I'm gonna throw it to Sparky, but it was 2003 and we're in Yankee Stadium. Royo comes out of the game in the first inning, and we proceed to go through almost our entire bullpen to get to you to close out a game that we had in hand. And you close this game out on a ground ball to Baggy, and you're fist pumping, and Baggy's kind of looking at you like, what's wrong with this guy, man? We're big deal, And tell me how that conversation went, because I tell the story all the time on air because it's so fascinating to people that some of us had no idea that no hitter even happened until the end of the game.
But this does get edited, right?
I had no idea.
No, I'm out there, and I mean, I am hyped out of my mind, and I am just pumping ground ball to Baggy. I'm sprinting, I'm blowing hamstrings out to get over there. I get the ball, and I'm like this. And Baggy looks at me he's like I'm needing. I'm good, and I go, "You dumbass! It's a no hitter. Yankee Stadium no hitter." And he's looking at me like, "What?" I was so bad. It was the biggest downer. I'm like, "What?" This is doing no hitter in Yankee Stadium. It's never been done. It hadn't been done in 56 years. And it's so funny because that night they were telling us about all these stories about the ghosts in the outfield and stuff. And so I'm like, shoot. And so all of a sudden I'm out there, and I mean, Jimmy Williams is calling down, "Hey, you want this inning?" I'm like, hell yeah. Well, I'm up before he's even calling. I'm like picking phone. Yeah, I'm good. And so, Dotel, Lidge, me, I mean, there was no doubt we were going to have this opportunity. And so, but it was just so funny. I remember and Jeff Kent, you had them. I mean, you've got these guys that are acting like, oh, it's no big deal. And it was such a killer. And then they come in, and Barry Waters has got champagne. And we're all, and everybody's like walking around like, why? What's the big deal here? And, and it was so short lived because it was a night game, and of course, a 1 o'clock game. We have a 1 o'clock game. I don't think I got to bed till like 4. And I remember getting up, going and we had an interview at like 9 o'clock. We're sitting here doing it. And everybody's pitching, and everybody had pitched that night had to come in the next day, except me. They wore it.
Everybody was available.
Everybody give up a run. It was like one of those things. And I was sitting out there just going, oh God, don't put me in.
All right. Hey, I called Brent Strom, the Astros pitching coach, about an hour ago. And I said, hey, I'm going to talk to Billy. Give me a story. He goes, I'll tell you when. I'm not sure if Billy knows or not, but it was in 1995. He was your pitching coach in Tucson. Mm-hmm. And you were a starting pitcher. You mentioned that a while ago after you were drafted. And he said that team was going to the playoffs. He had to call the farm director to get more baseballs. Did you know about this?
Mm-mm.
So he calls Fred Nelson, I believe it was, says, hey, we need some more baseballs for the playoffs. He goes, what are you talking about? We don't have that in the budget. Why don't you guys have baseballs? Are you giving them away? He goes, no, the first rounder you sent me doesn't have a breaking ball. He can't put anybody away. And he's got 110 pitches through 4 1/3 every time he pitches. So they foul off every one of these pearls. New baseballs because of Billy Wagner.
Oh, without a doubt.
So the question is, when did you pick up the breaking ball? Because that was obviously the difference maker.
Well, I had a curveball. I just couldn't throw. I mean, I had a hammer curveball, but it was one of those you like throw it super hard, super short, and it's like, oh, I can't swing at it. I never got anybody to swing it. And if I threw it for a strike, it was wow, okay, good. And so that was really. I mean, I went to the big leagues with one pitch and this sometime curveball, and Jerry Hunsinger is the one that said, listen, we're in Dodger Stadium. I give him a home run to Raul Mondesi on back-to-back curveballs.
Wow.
And he comes in, and Jerry is furious. He's right in my face, and he's like, no more curveballs. You're throwing a slider. I go, I don't know how to throw a slider. You figure it out.
Really?
We're in the middle of the season. I'm like, okay. Mike Magnatis, who taught me how to throw a slider.
No kidding.
Mike Magnatis. And so I'm sitting here, and I'm looking around. Mags is sitting beside me going, he goes, well, I mean, it was just awful. And then Lidge kind of helped me kind of get a little bit better, but it was, yes. I mean, when I was in college, I mean, it was nothing for me to throw 150 to 175 pitches a game. Absolutely not an issue, not a problem. And so, I mean, but yeah, I can definitely believe that without a doubt, because there was many a game where I'm like, 8, 9 pitches a batter.
You know, I think when you first broke into the big leagues, we can figure out who your mentors were because you had a lot of veterans: Draybeck, Swindell, Danny Darwin, I think, Brocale, some of these guys. But once you got to the latter stages of your career, what were you telling guys? What were you teaching some of the guys to pitch in the 9th inning?
Don't forget about Xavier Hernandez.
Oh yeah, Xavier
Hernandez was a huge influence on me.
Okay.
Mike Maddox was a huge influence on me because a lot of times a closer feels like he has to be 100% to be effective.
Hey, you know who else was on that team? Julian Morales' father-in-law, Terry Clark. Terry Clark was on that team.
Yep. Oh my gosh, TC.
Yep.
Holy cow.
Okay, so what did X teach you besides scuffing?
Whoa.
Accountability, huge accountability.
Okay.
He was, when I took over as a closer, he said, he pulled me to the side and he goes, these are the things I want you to do. Win, lose, or draw. You'll be at your locker. I'll have a towel, a water, and a beer for you. You'll answer your questions, and it'll be, if we win, it's us, team. If we lose, it's me and I. He goes, you always will say that. And so for the whole season, I come in, good, bad, whatever. He's sitting there and he's like standing right there.
Wow.
Making sure I did what I did. And so, and Danny Darwin, holy God, scariest man I've ever, he gets brought to Houston to supposedly be a setup man. And the very first thing he tells me, he walks up on me, he's 110 years old.
Yeah.
Looks down on me and goes, you do your job and I'll do mine. And don't you worry about anything else. I'm like, yes, sir. I'm like, I'm 25 years old looking at, yes, sir. And he's 40. So I'm like, yes, sir. And so, and then, but I think what I learned from them was just, humility, and taking the ball every day, good, bad, or whatever. You were never going to feel 100%. And what made you as a character, what the character you wanted to show was, I'll take the ball. I'm going to go out there with 80% or 70% or whatever I got to do and compete. And as a pitcher, you went out there so many times with your B and C stuff and, found a way to get these people out. But, I think, and when I was there and I had Kimbrel and Johnny Venters and, some of those guys, it was easy to tell those guys like, hey, right now it's going to be really easy. Nobody's seen you. Things are going to look really easy, but there's going to be a part, in that 4th to 5th year where you're going to have to figure out who are you. You have to figure out the character and the, and that'll separate you. But these are the words. This game's hard, and you got to remember this game's hard.
Everybody goes through that, don't they?
And the good ones are the ones that make their way out the other side. Mm-hmm. And it's really the ones who sit there and figure out that, hey, I can do this. And you got to have a support group. And I've been blessed all my life with people like Mike Magnani, Donnie Wall, Jay Powell, Scott Ellerton, that were in that bullpen, would sit there and could talk. You could bounce Doug Henry, guys like that you could have, Peter Moylan, Tim Worrell, Roberto Hernandez, Tom Gordon, Mike Williams. These guys were always around me to sit there and go, hey, I got you. There was teams when I was in Houston where we had Mike Williams, Flash Gordon, Lidge, Dotel, myself, Mike Jackson. There was a time we had 6 closers sitting in the bullpen and you're sitting here looking around going, oh, how do you lose? Yeah. But they taught me some things of how to, weather the storms and not every time was, there's some things I wish I could have taken back, but there's nothing I regret when I got on the field. I regretted some of the things I said between the time I got traded in Houston to the time I was in Philly. I think those are the times that I regret because I was so immature and I said some things that came off to be very selfish and egotistical, but it was really so far. I was so upset that I got traded from Houston because I really thought I was never leaving Houston. I was sitting here, I'm looking at my numbers in Houston going, shoot, I'm underpaid and I'm going to get to stay here for all my life. And then Dario Hunsicker walks down and says, hey, Drayton thinks we should trade you. He told me at the day before our last game against Chicago. So I'm like, oh, what? And I was just so crushed. I was so crushed. And so I think those are the things that now I talk to guys. That when I talk to pro guys, I sit there and go, listen, these are things you don't want to do. This is, and so, I've learned a lot. I've matured, and that's why being a high school coach fits me, because I can go, hey, I can show you how not to do a lot of these things. And so, being a mentor means you've had to fail enough to learn to teach somebody how to do it the right way. And so, I've been blessed with a lot of great people around me.
And I was blessed to be a teammate of yours. And I know that you played with a healthy respect for the game. And that's why you probably were as successful, or were on teams that were actually highly competitive and winning, because they needed a piece like you to go out there and compete on a daily basis. But now it's time for the game to respect you, because you have the numbers that should garner enough votes to put you in the Hall of Fame. That's my heartfelt just feeling. And I think it's starting to trend that way. Like Sparky was talking about earlier, the numbers are there. But when these conversations come up, you start to hear about the individuality, and you start to hear about some of the statistics. Have you looked through some of your numbers? And if you have, is there one that jumps at you and you kind of say, wow, I didn't know I did it. I didn't know I did it as well as those numbers are telling me right now.
I think when I've looked at them, it's batting average against.
Ooh, yeah.
I think I stand back and I'm like, with all the great hitters that I've faced, I mean, when I look back and I'm going, wow. I mean, to be able to hold my own against those guys, to all you guys that I faced was just, I'm like, man, because you guys, I never felt, it was like stepping on the mountain, no matter who I faced, I never felt like I was better than that guy. I really didn't. I mean, I respected guys. Now, there was times where you became a different person, a different animal on there to compete, but I never took it. Like, I'm going to get this guy, no big deal. I never felt that. I think, and guys laugh because kids asked me about how I prepared I said, I puked every game. I threw up every single game. I was so worried about failing. I was, there was probably 2 games in my career that to this day I lose sleep. I wake up going, oh my God, frustrated. I mean, and I think it was 98 against San Diego. What's his name? Lyrowitz. It's a massive battle going on. He hits an opposite field straight down the line.
Say up and away, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, nobody does that. No. It's a foul ball. He hits a home run. Well, and then 06 with the Mets, I go into the playoffs and I have nothing. I am throwing poo. I'm sitting here. I have my arm. I can't feel it. I'm trying to figure out. I mean, it's just awful. And we have probably the best chance I ever had to go to the World Series, and I have nothing. I'm thinking, I can't even tell you how many times. Like, we did something with the Mets about 06, and I remember being just apologize. I'm sorry, guys. I suck. I felt so bad because those guys were so good, and I was so bad. And I think those are the 2 things that when I sit there and look at these stats, those are the 2 things I think about. Though it's not the individual stuff, because it's not the stats that get you in the Hall of Fame. It's got nothing to do with the stats, because my stats are plenty good enough. Everybody knows it's a political. I didn't give somebody an interview, or I said something stupid or something. But that's because 100, and I said it before. They want to tell me 100 innings is going to keep me out of the Hall of Fame, and if 100 innings keep you out of the Hall of Fame, then I'm fine.
Yeah, whatever. No, that's ridiculous. I think in the current climate, as far as political correctness is concerned, you're in pretty good shape in comparison to some of the guys on that list. You should be all right.
Well, too, I think that the fact that so many people are diving into the numbers a little bit more aggressively, and our media relations department with the Astros, I think, is doing a great job. And when you look at all those, and Gene Diaz sent those to us the other day, Blummer. I mean, it's staggering.
Dude.
It's staggering.
I don't know if Billy's seen this thing, but it's 2-pager, dude, and they're ridiculous, man. He was speaking of batting average against that Billy's talking about. He had a 187 batting average against. The next closest guy was 20 points away, and it was Mariano Rivera at 207 as far as relievers are concerned.
Wow.
And it's the game is so crazy, and it's just it's when I watch today's guys, I mean, I'm just in awe of them. But I mean, to be a good player, you have to have good teammates and you have to have a good team. And I've been blessed. I mean, Bagwell and Biggio and Jeff Kent and Blummer and Lance Berkman and you know, Derek Bells and guys like that. I mean, you can't get a save if guys don't make plays and give you a lead. And I mean, Brad Osmus and Jerry Goff. And I mean, I give Jerry Goff a huge – I think of him often because – and I mean, he doesn't get a lot of hype or talk because he had one bad game in Montreal with Mike Hampton where he had 6 pass balls, but he was probably one of the best catchers I ever had. And he gave me so much confidence, and he talked me through so many tough situations that when I got to the big leagues and I had Tony Eusebio and these guys, I was ready to deal with what was going to go on. And, you know, I just think, you know, the teammates make the better play. I don't think Mariano is Mariano if you don't have Posada behind the plate, or you have Derek Jeter making that play in the hole, or you know, Charlie Hayes or Wade Boggs or, you know, and Trevor Hoffman. I mean, Trevor, to me, and I love all relievers and players, but I'll be honest with you, Trevor Hoffman is probably the greatest closer I've ever seen. There's nobody can pitch with that crap and get 601 saves. I'm serious, 601 saves. And I mean, you know it as well as when I played with Boston, they couldn't wait for Mariano to come on the field. Boston was so excited when he came on the field. I was never on a team where Trevor came on. I had guys going, shh, game's over, guys. I mean, I had the Hall of Famers trying to get under the dugout, get out of the dugout. I mean, that was the biggest difference. I'm watching, and I mean, I love Hoff. I mean, when I grow up, that's who I want to be. Awesome hair.
Say the surf flow. Yep.
Just shredded up.
Bandana.
Yeah, working out, go back.
Running shirtless in the streets of San Diego.
Yeah, at 1 in the afternoon.
No, I'm stuck with bald head and a pot belly. Awesome.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love those guys. But I do. My teammates, I mean, even when in Philadelphia, I tell you, I grew up so much with Jimmy Rollins and Dave Bell and Jim Tomey and Chase Utley and those guys. I mean, without those guys, those numbers that everybody thinks are so impressive, I would never have those numbers. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not trying but that's really what I feel like. I mean, those guys were tremendous for me. And I mean, I wouldn't even have a chance if it weren't for all you guys.
Yeah.
Even you, Blummer.
Hey, for a brief moment in time, it was a lot of fun playing behind you, dude.
Well, I enjoyed that. I do. I miss those days. I miss those days. And, you know, to have the opportunity to go back occasionally has been a lot of fun and stuff. I mean, so hopefully I'll get back down there. This whole COVID thing will get out of the way and I get back down there and spend more time.
Yep. Well, Billy, we appreciate you. Always great to catch up. You're so generous with your time. We appreciate that. And, you know, about the Hall of Fame stuff, I think it's going to be the perfect timing, and we can't wait to watch you cry.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, if that happens, it will be, and it will be a lot. So I appreciate that.
There you go, Billy the Kid.
All the best to you, Billy. Thanks for coming on, man.